So here we have another interview with Burning Bird. Today we're going to be interviewing Burning Bird because we have a very interesting topic to cover, and it is definitely something that is very hot in the media right now. With this said, Burning Bird is a organic grower who is doing some extremely high level stuff. What I've been seeing is a lot of old school stuff, but he also does some of the newer school stuff as well, where it's the best of both worlds. With that said, this is definitely a very interesting topic to ask him because he is working with a grow that is source that BackPackBoyz sources flour from. So, without further ado, here is Burning Bird. How's it going today?
How's it going, man? I'm doing well.
So, what do you think about this whole controversy? Do you think that this has been blown out of proportion?
Um, I kind of think it's being blown out of proportion because it's not really big news. It's not things that we have, not heard of before. It's honestly been a thing since the start of legalization. That we've seen with different brands, legal, gray market alike, black market alike testing positive for heavy metals, other, additives, chemicals, whatever have you, and so it's just like, it's something that, I feel like is being brought up because, again, Backpack Boys is a very popular, street brand, but also gaining popularity as, a kind of quasi legal, quasi legal brand. It's an easy target for people to say, well, hey, look at Backpack Boys, people that get, a lot of visibility, their exposure is extremely high. It's easy to talk about them in the mix of all of these other places, legal or not, that are failing these same tests. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, it's low hanging fruit, in my opinion, when we know that, those guys are looking to try to be legal, but again, it's obviously hard to do that. And I mean, even the guys that are on the legal, again, like all the way regulated side, I mean, it's like they're losing out. They're losing out too, and I mean, they're also failing those same tests and those COAs. All of these different attributes towards the legal industry that kind of denote, I guess, safety and of use, can also be manipulated. And so it's just like, there's a lot of shit that's going on that I feel like is just being highlighted right now. But Backpack Boys is being made the example, just because of the name.
Yes. So before I even get further into it, have you heard his response? Have you heard Juan's response?
I did have not listened to Juan's response. Again, I don't really follow Backpack Boys as as thoroughly, maybe as I should. But I mean, like, again, I just view them as a brand like any other legal brand that I see out here. Again, like, I've worked for Source Cannabis. I've worked for other small cultivation groups that cultivate for these big retail shops and or brands that are popular. And I think that the same thing is happening now that was happening before. And there's just more light being shed on this as, again, people become more interested in education. Or I don't even think people are interested in education so much as I think that people are just looking for another headline. I wish that we would care about it, because if you did, then we would honestly have kind of, corrected and discussed and really been aimed towards solving and resolving the issue than kind of pointing the finger right about now, if we were really concerned about it. So it's just like, I don't know. I haven't followed Juan and the response, but, I know that it's, probably something to do with, again, people source bad product all of the time, right? Like, you mean, like, most of the time that you don't know who grows it, including those guys that are doing the buying. And I mean, it happens.
Yeah. So basically, what he said was that it was a fake test. Basically, he says that the product that was tested was actually not legitimately from them. So people were basically trying to use them as an example, almost. Basically, is what I interpreted from it. But with that said, I think that you're right to an extent. I definitely know what you're saying. I think that right now people are trying to figure out who is responsible for all these different things and whatnot. Even like the spray, in a way, I feel as if the spray has been something that has not necessarily been a topic that has been fully addressed in a way where people actually can see why people aren't happy with it. You know what I mean? Because there's also a good amount of people that are doing like funny videos with it now, trying to act like it's like a way to go. But I definitely understand what you mean. I think that it is much bigger of a problem, and I think that that is definitely something that needs to be addressed as well. I feel as if right now we're in a time where people definitely still don't know it all about the plant, and I don't think we ever really will. I think we discussed this in our last interview where the plant is just so fun because there's always so much more to learn. But with that said, there's always weird ways of people getting over on the people, which in a time like this, or in a moment like this, in a situation like this, I think that it would be interesting to find out if that wasn't actually his stuff, if someone is trying to almost use them as like, or someone's trying to kill off their brand in a way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of been the score, right? Like, when a brand is popular, it's easy to discredit them, and so I feel like, especially when they have the ties that they do, that and they're public with it, and about, just marketing and in general, their strategy. I mean, it makes them a prime target for, hey, these guys are legal, but they're, selling clean, they're selling, faulty or unclean products. Like, that's again, it's low hanging fruit. And so, yeah, like, I think BackPackBoyz has to look internally, again, like, and look at how they marketing stuff. I mean, and then also we also have to look at, industry standards, which are not that. It is very easy to fake a test. I mean, that's what happens very often. I mean, whether it's to one direction or the other, whether it's to say, oh, this batch tested at 30%, but they might have went to this other lab and said, well, hey, like, we'll pay you a little bit more if you can get that to a 35. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And that other lab, of course, is gonna, fudge something so that they can make that extra dollar. I mean, like I was talking about on my story, I feel like it's, everyone out for themselves and trying to make a dollar off the regulation. And sometimes that comes, at the expense of a brand or an entity. And this time it happens to be BackPackBoyz. And I think that because there's so much fake Backpack Boy stuff that's out there as part of their marketing scheme, you see what I'm saying? It's like, it's the double-edged sword that you fall on when everybody in the world wants to have your stuff so much that they're knocking it off, that something as official as a report like the LA Times would come back and report that BackPackBoyz, the brand itself, tested positive for all of these different things in their carts or whatever. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's a double-edged sword, because I mean, like, at the same time, some people probably do believe that they're getting BackPackBoyz and they're really not, right? Or they're getting something that is actually stamped from BackPackBoyz and they're really not. And I mean, it comes at the expense of the BackPackBoyz. I think that falls back on their initial start, which was, again, everybody was in the streets. You had the official stuff and you had the knockoff stuff. I mean, the same thing with Jokes Up, Runts, all of that. It was like cookies. I mean, you look at how much knockoff cookies material there is. I mean, from actual merchandise to literal weed, right?
Yeah.
Like, everybody, tries to use that moniker, and so it's like same thing with BackPackBoyz. It, you get yourself to a certain amount of exposure, And now, people know that if I add this name to it, or if I add this label to it, it's gonna sell. It just so happens one of those fake packages that got labeled Backpack Boys ended up in somebody's hands that wanted to make an example.
That reminds me of the Rio the Young OG lyric where he says the I got the bags from LB but the runs are fake. And
You know
that
what I'm saying?
it's one of those lyrics that when you hear it it's just like shit, that's probably like everyone's probably been played by that in their rise of like trying to figure out what is what. I mean, unless you're in California, maybe you can avoid something like that. But if you're on the East
Mm-hmm.
Coast, people are getting all types of weird fake backpack boys, and it's like it's amazing to still see people getting played with that stuff. But at the end of the day, what I think it is just being too big. Some brands are trying to be global, and obviously that is not necessarily easy or manageable if you're trying to have a lot of different people on your team. There's always going to be someone who wants to make a little bit extra, and
Mm-hmm.
in a position like that where someone could potentially had fake stuff on their shelves and that is what actually got tested, if that is the case, that falls back on the brand in my opinion. I think that having your brand in too many people's access is just no good. It's something that you see with like small batch. Like the reason why I think any of these small batch people are able to get such a high ticket, obviously the quality is one thing, but also just like the accessibility. Like no one can get any of those Nemo nonsense, but everyone wants it, so they're willing to pay fucking insane amounts of money for it. Which I'm not gonna say it's complete nonsense. I've never tried it, but I've talked to a lot of people and they say it's definitely some really really good homegrown. But it's like it is what it is. You know what I mean? People are literally just paying for it because of how hard it is to get. It's almost like this game that they've started playing on themselves. But with that said, what do you think? Do you think that it's the over everyone has weed now, so it's just always gonna have opportunities for shit to go bad?
I mean, I would say that, and I mean, I'm not pessimistic about it. It's just, you know, there's more weed being produced now than ever before. Again, in California alone, again, I can't give you direct stats, but again, we're producing, overproducing, right?
Mm.
And I mean, there's only so many pot shops in California and Los Angeles, across the United States that can, support that type of production. And so naturally it's going to fall into the hands of people that, the government might not want it to fall into, or, the state might not want it to fall into. And when you have businesses, especially in California, that are struggling to stay afloat, if you're in cannabis right now, it's very rare. I mean, I'm listening to the state of it from just other people that are growing. I mean, like the home grow market is based purely off of passion. So again, even though I don't agree with price gouging, and I don't agree with you know overcharging, people just for accessibility, I do understand why it's happening. But again, it's also because, even though everybody's doing it, not everybody's doing it at a certain level. So, I get that. And I think that, it's going to be the only thing that can combat some of the larger scale operations, without trying to actually compete on a production basis, right? I think that the home grows are helping, but as far as like, I think accessibility is important. And so the commercial grows are needed. It's just people that have ran farms before aren't running these, plants, big thousand, multi, million, dollar facilities, right? Like the people that are running those are not your, not your Humboldt farmer. They're not from Mendocino. They're not from the scene. They're not from the culture. So it's like, you have people that are producing things that are kind of, what I say is just, it's unnatural, right? Like it's producing an unnatural expectation in the consumer. Um, but it's also producing this unnatural expectation with the people that are pushing it, and everyone across the board. And so the entire model is kind of frayed, where you just have things going for production, which makes sense. But when you talk about that production, it's not treated nearly with the same. It can't be. But I mean, when I tell you, it's not even close as far as the amount of attention to detail, as far as the concerns with what's actually going into the product. Some of these places, but very few, care about you know the actual process of getting to that pound, or getting to that. Most places, though, what I know is their metric is they're trying to hit more than 2 pounds of light, which means that, again, whether that's pushing it with pure crap, or pushing it with the primo, driving up the cost of the cost of the actual goods, right? Like it has to make sense for them, and so the people that care about it aren't there. They're being choked out by, again, capitalist interest. Shucks. A bottom line is what drives all commercial facilities. So again, they're pumping out this trash that needs to be sprayed. See what I'm saying? That segues into the spray, where again it's so much subpar flour, or so much, grade B, C plus at best flour being produced. And this is also what the consumer can afford. And it's because, nobody's willing to look outside. And I say it's outside because it's not in our modern framework. Nobody's willing to look at the outdoor growers that are, again, literally being lowballed for their pounds, even though their pounds are, far out. Like, I'm talking about outclassing everything that's coming out of indoor facilities. Maybe not visually, but overall experience, and
100%.
it's also price point forward. But people aren't being taught that, so we're steered towards, well, I can go take my sprinkles, I can go take my marshmallow pack, whatever the hell they got going on with that marketing, and we can take this low tier indoor flower, spray it up with some added, terpenes and essential oils or whatever the hell they're spraying it with, and and we can market it that way. And it's at a ticket that people won't pass up. See what I'm saying? Even the higher end stuff. You rebrand it now, and it's what it is. It's just low tier flour, sold at a higher price. It's like those same schemes are happening because I feel like the level of consumer that we are right now just isn't matched, and people are trying to make it off of the backs of, I think, the ignorance of people that are buying this shit, you know, across the board. So that's all the end users that don't know squat about weed, and to be honest.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I definitely know what you mean. I think at the end of the day, right now, we're in a time where people, it's very, very hard to make a lot of money in the game right now. I think this is probably more of a time where it's better to plan for the future in a way, if you know what I'm saying. But let me ask you
Yeah.
this. So basically, what is the aim? Let me just address this real quick. I know we kind of I asked you a question about Backpack Boys before. So the one of the brands you work for, it actually grows for Backpack Boys, and the question I have is, what is the aim for pounds per light when you are growing for them?
Like I said, if you can hit 2 pounds of light, that's good. But if you can hit 2.5, 3, that's what everybody's aiming for. Lemon cherry gelato as a production plant works well. If you grow it right, it'll produce, it'll yield. And so people are going with what will move, name wise, profile wise. Again, it's something that people recognize, it's a name that people recognize, and it also, on the production side of things, it's beautiful, it looks good, it smells good, and it yields, right?
Yields a
And
lot,
then
yeah.
You know, and so like on the back end of that, I mean, like when it's grown right in the right hands, it tastes great. You know, I can't really say too much about the effects. I mean, outside of the fact that it gives me a, you know, a little bit of euphoria. I feel like it's one of those things that's like candy, like where you get the high where you're eating the candy and then you stop eating the candy and you need a little bit more. So it's like eating a pack of literally eating a pack of Skittles where it's like, damn, I've already eaten half this pack. I need to stop eating it, but I need that little hit again. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so it's that formula that works across the board for people that are just trying to set up indoor and want an easy start with something that'll move. You know, I mean, think about it. It's like growing it at scale outdoors. I mean, like shucks, I got 100 pounds or 200 pounds of LCG that I can move for a stack, or 1,200, or again, if I grow it right, I could get upwards 18. You know, like it's no question, right? I mean, like their goal is to get as much yield as possible and have it be as decent as possible, right?
Yeah.
Decent is very subjective, and again, like just from my stance and my opinion, again, like we clash at the facility about it because my opinion and my homie Ja's opinion about what's fire and what's not differs like vastly from what they view as really good flour. And so I mean, like, again, I say this out loud, I've never been shot. I just work there, right? Like they it's a paycheck. But do I consume the lemon cherry gelato from the facility? No. Do I consume some of that stuff? If it's good, I mean, like, and if I've been in the room and I've seen it from start to finish, or I've seen it at least, a bit of the way through, we can run it if it's good. But I mean, for me personally, I'm not smoking it because I don't prefer it, and I feel like there's more superior. And I mean, I feel like if you're smoking something, this is what people have to start to really look at it as. If you're smoking something, like, we already deciding to do the damage to ourselves by smoking. Like, let's at least make it a luxurious, a worthwhile, experience while we're doing that, right? Which means that my shit shouldn't be hurting, my head shouldn't be hurting, I shouldn't be regretting the fact that I'm, you know, inhaling this flower. And so, like, that's my only critique to that whole model, is that, like, all right, like, you all are producing something that everybody likes, but to stand out, why not do it at a higher level? I mean, now that you're that big.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that candy is definitely a funny one because, as you said, basically, I think like the skills example is like you can never just have one. You know what I mean? It's like you're always gonna probably eat at least half the pack of the Skittles. It's like having one Skittle is like it's like the weirdest thing. That's why if you eat candy, it's I don't know. I think that that is probably like a market for those types of people in a way.
Yeah.
I feel like it's definitely it is very like nostalgic. I see the branding of like a lot of the stuff like really does catch your eyes and it's really appealing. But at the end of the day, if they're investing that much money into packaging, it's probably not necessarily going to be the best of the best from what I've seen, from what I've experienced. But let me ask you this: were you surprised when these results came out about Backpack Boys?
No. I mean, I'm not surprised by the test results that I get and see from that are made public by any brand, because after working with facilities, again, like, we're people, like, there are people that are working there. But like, quality, like I said, is on this really big sliding scale. And what's salvageable and what's not, in my opinion, is a no-brainer to me. But to them, it's like, look, if we can clean it up, clean it off, we can sell it. You know what I'm saying? If we can spray it down, spray it up, and it not read too funky, we're gonna sell it, right?
Oh,
And so after a while, after a while, that's going to be checked. And so it's just like that's my whole thing. I agree with the fact that we need people that can produce at scale, but I just don't think it should be the people that are doing it, or that we're leaving it to do, like, the job right about now, because everybody and their mama with money, can just go buy a facility and waste a lot of, resource, power, energy, what, alike, and produce this mid tier, I mean, like, mid exotic quality. Again, like it's purple, all of this stuff. But it's checking off boxes for the lower level consumer. And it's not like a diss to them. It's a, well, you don't know any better. You know what I'm saying? Or you don't, or this is what you prefer to smoke because this is what's available to you. Or this is what's marketed to you based off of rap music or based off of popular culture. So it's like, it all feeds into itself. And when you get test results back that are like this, again, I've been talking about the horrors of commercial flour for a long time. I mean, and not just me. There's a lot of other pages that are just dedicated to some of just the disgusting things that you see, because it's like, with outdoor, with, sun grown, you know what you're getting, right? Like, you already know it's been outside. You already know it's been in the elements. It's weathered. It's been through it. The bud has character. But when you get this indoor flower and you're sold on it being cleaner than outdoor, I think that that's a fallacy. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that's a lie that people tell themselves to continue to buy the indoor, when realistically, again, like, if you really want indoor flower, I think you should go small batch. I mean, like, spend the extra money, because you're going to spend the extra money on the commercial shit, and it's going to be, you know, half what it should be in quality. But I mean, like, if you're not educated on it, then you're going to continue to spend money that way. You know, most people cop black market still anyway. And I mean, they're still copping the same product. They're just copping it on the black market. So it's like, you go into the store and you're getting runts, but then you go to the street and you're getting LCG and a backpack boy, little eighth sack. Like, it's the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Just from different distributors. And it's like, the real gold, the star that's in there is the homegrown, or again, like these outdoor farms that are, going out of business because you got guys that are, I mean, out producing everybody, whether it's large farms, outdoors that again also suck to an extent, or it's large indoor plants. It's like the same type of rigmarole.
Let me ask you this. What is your target audience? Who are you, when you are growing a plant, who are you targeting it for? I know you obviously would pick at least like one or two out of the bunch that are probably going to be more for yourself, but which what is your like target audience?
Um, I mean, my target audience is mainly for, people that are kind of already interested in flower. It's not that I don't want the casual smoker or the new smoker to come, but like, I mean, you know, when you grow the things that I grow, it's already very, niche, right? Like, if it's old school, you already are cutting off half of the modern market, right? Like, a lot of people just aren't willing to spend their money on it to try it. But mine is, I would say, would be a more seasoned, or a kind of intermediate, smoker who enjoys variety, and is willing to try old and new things, right? So again, like, it's people like myself. I mainly grow for myself, and what I really like, I'm like, hey, I think other people might like these things, so I share them. That's how all of my things have come out. I mean, I've used that as an organic approach, right? Like, I just don't want to grow things in my space that other people like, but I hate, right? Like, that's just not my approach. I feel like if you're gonna be doing this at home, or doing this for yourself, like, you have to love what it is that you're growing. So if that's, running different varieties all of the time, to constantly have new flavors, or if it's honing in on selected ones like I have, like I really love dog walker belts. Like I don't just like it because it's viable to other people. I like it because it checks boxes, not just, your taste, aroma, not just your assessment categories, but like lineage. I mean, like I care about the history. I care about the story behind flowers. I also like to support people that are doing it that aren't big names. So again, like, the guy that I got those seeds from just shared those seeds with me and has shared seeds with me from those pollinations. And I mean, like it's helped me. I mean, again, garner a name a little bit because people see the dog walker belts and there's quality to it. I've also ran, other things that are in the belts 2.0 that he worked. And so I mean, like it's about, really connecting and actually being this whole community shit that we all talk about. Like it's about that more so than anything. Like I want people to get my stuff and be like, oh, this is a little bit different. It's, more towards what's on market, but it's still, it's unique in the sense that we haven't seen this dog walker OG in a long time. We know what rainbow belts, brings to the table, but we want to see what the dog influence is, or, the slam dunk skunk is a Trinity skunk to Gary Payton. A lot of people don't know the history behind, the Trinity. And so, I like Katsu because he, plays around with elite clones, and then also, your modern hype stuff that, is kept around in clone form. And he put those two together, and I think it created something that gives you the best of both worlds, right? Like gives you some old school nostalgia, but it also gives you this new modern frame, and something that also could be considered easy to sell, just like belts. I mean, like people recognize Rainbow Belts 2.0, and it's like automatically I know I'm going to get something with some candy. You mentioned Gary Payton, and you remember the remarkable batches, from 2018 and 2019 and 17, and it's like, all right, I'll go for that, right? But ultimately, it starts with me, liking what it is that I'm growing, and then sharing it, and other people are like, yeah, this is that.
Is there any strains that you have coming up that are going to be harvested soon that you're looking forward to?
Yeah. So again, I'm running Slam Dunk Skunk and Dog Walker belts right now. I call it dog belts. So I'm running those again. This is like my third or fourth time with both of them. I'm also running the Bentang Moss, which is Panama Pupil B2 by Acapulco Gold. That's like, again, it can go a whole 16 weeks. I don't know if I'm gonna let it go 16, but I'm thinking that because I'm running this metal halide lamp in the 4x4, that things are like, I've never seen the dog walker belts take as long as it's taking to finish. It generally does finish at around like 56 days.
Wow.
But we're at like day, 44, and it's still, kind of, it's still really stacking and pushing, these white pistols, right? So, because it's going longer, I'll probably let the Bentang Moss, you know, go about, if I can get it to, 13 weeks. If I could slide it into the other tent somehow, I might try to do that. It's always generally hard running that one, the longer flowering one. But I love it because the smoke is different, the high is different. And again, it's nostalgic. It's like a real embodiment of Acapulco Gold. Like, it has some different elements to it from the Panama Pupil, but it's just like smoking, some really old school, Mexican weed.
Wow. I have
Yeah.
one question I think you're gonna like. What is one thing that you've learned about yourself through you starting to grow?
um, it's what I've learned about myself is that, I've thought I was disciplined, early on in life and before I, got out here. I've always put together plans and executed, but like growing has brought out a different side of, understanding what it means to be disciplined, right? I think that's also what separates, really good growers from, again, the legendary ones that do move on to having, a bit bigger size rooms than just tents or, a little 8 lighter, right? Um, and so it's just taught me about my own discipline and or lack thereof. So, places where I could probably improve. Um, you know, whether that's making schedules, which I hate. Again, it's my whole aura and demeanor is like very much so you know day by day, kind of go with the flow. I'm very, I'm kind of in the clouds a little bit, originally, like myself, but growing with the plant, and understanding that, it's something else that needs literal care and not just when you want to give it. It's like, when it needs it. So, you want to be ahead of that curve and you want to be in sync with that. And you don't do that outside of repetition, outside of, again, you wake up a little late, or you get hungover this weekend and you don't feel like doing the D leaf. Well, guess what? Middle of the week next week, you're going to be dealing with powdery mildew. You know what I'm saying? Or middle of the week next week, you're going to be dealing with a pest problem, or you're going to be dealing with, you know, the work that you were supposed to be doing at that time. You're now doing that on top of everything else, which backs up your whole schedule. And I mean, I can't say that I'm the still the best at it. Like I'm still really improving, but it's made me very aware of that.
I think that is definitely important. I think that is great for anyone that is looking to start growing. For a motivation on why to start is because it definitely will give you more awareness of what you're doing wrong, and you're gonna see through each time it's gonna improve. And well, as long as you keep steady on being aware of what
Mhm.
your mistakes are.
We're going to take a quick second to tell you guys about this giveaway that I'm actually doing for this YouTube right here. This YouTube, if you are subscribed to the YouTube, if you send proof of your subscription to my email address, which is this email right here, weeddocumentaries420 at gmail.com. If you can send the proof of your subscription to this email, then you'll just be entered in. Very easy. It's a very easy way of entering. And on top of it, it is going to get you some really, really cool prizes. So why not try? I definitely appreciate anyone who enters. So much
one
love.
one question I had that I think that you might like: what is your favorite strain to grow? I know you said before that your favorite strain in the world is Bubba Kush, but what is your favorite strain to actually grow?
Not Bubba Kush,
Yeah, I can assume.
just because it's so fucking small. But let me think. I mean, again, I've really only ran these seed varieties that have come out recently, so I haven't been able to experience one of those like really traditional or old school clone onlys, like one of the classics. I would love to grow pure, Legend OG or Ghost OG, you know. But what I've enjoyed from what I've grown, ironically, would be Cushman's 11. And people again talk so much shit on Cushman's, but again, I feel like it's one of those things where if it's grown right, it has the potential to be really good.
Definitely.
And so like one of my first runs ever that was like really good and successful was this Cushman's run that I got from my boy Jaws Organics, who he had just had the cut. He was like, "Here, I had extras. I don't need them." He gave me that one, and he gave me like another, like I think it was a Tiki Madman cut. And again, I didn't really favor that one, but I love the Cushmans because it was again cushy. It was different. It was different from the other thing that I was growing, which like I said was like a Skittles to I think it was like a banana trop, So that's what it was called, banana trop Skittles. And again, it tasted like purple. That tasted like Purple Punch to me. But the Cushments had this really, earthy, cushy, spicy. But then it had, some menthol. It had these other little elements that I liked about it, and it was also just super easy to grow. I like also this again, Slam Dunk Skunk. It's bulletproof. I'm talking about like powdery mildew resistant. I again have grown it in the 4x8, the 4x4, where there has been powdery mildew present. And I'm talking about sometimes at high levels. Like I said, like you get behind on something, PM is present. Like I've killed whole rounds to, lost whole rounds to powdery mildew because I refuse to sell it. I refuse to process it. So I throw it away. But what'll remain will be the slam dunk skunk, and I'm talking about like no powdery mildew, no issues, right? Like the only issue that you really do have to worry about is when it's smaller. Making sure it gets all that it needs because it'll outpace the really small pots, pretty fast. But it's bulletproof. It yields. So again, That's why I selected it. On top of the fact that it's just really bomb ass smoke.
What do you think is the biggest loss that you've taken when it comes to like throwing plants away? Have you ever thrown any like serious amount away?
Uh, Not serious amounts, but again, like any amount when you're throwing it away as a home grower is a huge loss, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
think about it. If you only have one light, you know, and you're throwing away, 25% of the crop, it's like it might you might still end up with a pound and a half, and most of the time I get lucky, even with having to throw some of that stuff away to still yield what I do, but it's a big loss when I'm throwing away, even a single plant. Like, but my biggest loss would probably be, ooh, if I did like I was trying to do a really big run in the 4x8, not like a lot of plants, but just bigger plants, and yeah, that failed. So I think I threw away about 5, 6 plants again out of like a total of maybe 15. So that's a lot. That's a lot of weed. You know what I'm saying? And they were like, it was like I think week 6, and that's like again, once you get to week 6, week 7, things are all the way set for what the fuck's going on with that run. Like if you fucked it up, and at week 2, it's going to show at week 6, week 7. If you had a pest or if you had a you know pathogen problem like powdery mildew or like mold anywhere earlier in the process, if you've noticed that there was some root rot or whatever, oh man, those problems are coming to full fruition at week 6, into week 5, into the final phases because again, you're trying to get it cooler. You're trying to play with environments, and they're just showing you just how bad you you fucked that off.
When you said that you were trying to make them bigger, what was the attempt? How were you trying to do that?
Oh no, they were already big plants. What I'm saying was they were oversized plants that were kind of. I mean, I didn't abandon them, but again, I was working doing something else, and not paying as much attention to the run as I probably should have for them to be big plants. And at this time, they were like it was in the 4x8, so my 4x8 holds, you know, I do smaller pot runs. I do like 3 gallons, 2 gallons, but they're generally a lot smaller plant size. Like generally about the size that I have in there right now for as many plants as I do. That's about the size that I like for 2 to 3 gallons, just because you don't really outpace the container like that. And that's like the whole goal with organics. That's what turns you from an organic grower to somebody that's feeding constantly is the size of your pot. Once run out of steam and battery with that 5 gallon, now you're having to supplement nutrients. And so with that run, I had these really big plants in 2 gallon pots. And so I'm thinking that, flipping them just right away, just because they were there, like it was good enough, but it wasn't. And, again, like I left them a little too bushy. Temps get really high. And with big plants, there's a lot of transpiration, there's a lot of moisture, there's a lot of humidity. So, I mean, things being out of whack in there led to high humidity, like really big temperature swings and spikes from day to night. And all of those things are, you know, if you've already, because powdery mildew is in the air, right? It just needs a vector. It needs the right environment, the right conditions for it to actually, you know, take hold and then metastasize across one plant and then across the others. So, that's probably the biggest thing. I wasn't trying to grow them bigger. They were already really large plant that I was like, yeah, I think I'll flower these. Like, kind of being greedy, like you want yield. You're trying to turn a crop really, really soon. So you're not checking plant health maybe as much as you should, or they look healthy, but they can only be so nice to you in those 2 gallon pots.
What's the most you've ever got off each light when you're growing organic?
Off of each light, the most I've gotten is up to 2 pounds. So again, that's off of a single light, right? Like my 4x8, this run right now that I'm doing with the 7 cultivars is the first time I've ever had the 4x8 completely lit as far as like lighting was concerned. I've always only had one light in there and then one light in the 4x4. So I've kind of underproduced as far as like the space is concerned because I've been constrained to lighting is the most expensive part of the you know
It is, yeah.
part of the growth. So it's like buying the light fixture and then also paying for electricity is ridiculous. And so finally I got to a place where I could get another light. I could, afford to have more lights running. And I did just that. And so this time I'm expecting yields to be a lot higher, for the 4x8. But again, still, it would be the most that I've gotten will be out of my 4x4 underneath again a 500 watt, cob LED,
Do
be
you,
2 pounds.
do you think that so non-organic is like double? You're gonna get double the yield, basically.
Uh, I think that if you do it right, yeah, and I mean I also think that organics can yield just as much, or at least, I won't say just as much because, I mean, most people that are doing salts, hydro, or synganic even, are kind of pushing for uniformity, so consistency and yield, right? Whereas, like, when you're growing organics, not at scale, or, you're not trying to produce it for a whole lot of other people, it's like you're going for, expression, quality of the flower, quality of the resin, and all of these different things. But I think that going after the quality and focusing on plant health, as I've learned through Build a Soil and through, reading the One Straw Revolution, is that if you focus on, these small, fine details, and building your regiment, as far as like taking care of the soil, taking care of, the environment, and taking care of the weakest link in your grow, then you can grow. I mean, you can max out in yield. I mean, I haven't been able to do that. I'm also not as familiar with indoor growing because, traditionally, when I first started growing, I was outside, so I was trying to plant things outdoors, or in a greenhouse, which is still very different from growing indoors.
Yeah, definitely. What is your definition of organics when it comes to terms of cannabis?
Mm. This is a funny, that's a funny question. I feel like organics is both, right? Like it's the buzzword, it's the I guess how you define it, like approved for organic use, right? And then there's also like naturally derived. So again, from living organic or natural. naturally occurring things. I lean towards natural inputs, like over calling it organic. But again, like Birdhouse Organics is because I also grow in an organic style. 2 gallon pots, that's not living soil, right? Like it's not fully natural. It's not fully organic because you don't have the full ecosystem, right? Whereas like my 30 gallons, that fits the bill for, you know, like true living soil. I mean, like, and even still, some would argue that it's not living soil because it's not closed loop, and I have to top dress, and everything is not like found locally. So some people might argue with that for me, but for me, it's having natural input. So again, like ferments, that's something that I could make in my house, right, from plants that I have on hand. That would be considered organic for me. um again, like making different microbial solutions, so JMS, the Jadam, the Jadam microbial solutions. Even the inoculants that I do buy bag, I think Builder Soil does a good job of sourcing. Like I follow them. That's who I follow, adamant, right? Jeremy from Builder Soil. I see, where he's sourcing the products. I follow where he's sourcing the products at. So again, like you're following, Rootwise, you're following these different, companies and these guys that are behind the companies, J Plant Speaker. And it's like you're seeing the process. So, it's like to me, indoors, that's as clean as you can get, right? Like it's high quality. Naturally derived, excuse me. Um, and then I mean, I don't have a problem with the USDA approved for organic use stuff. Like as long as it, I don't really prefer bone meal, blood meal, and things like that because those are animal product byproducts, and they're also, you don't know where those cows ate or what they were fed, right? So again, if you're using their byproduct and they are fed stuff that's like pumped with heavy metals, I mean, like shucks, that's going to be part of your byproduct with your cannabis. So it's like, I toe the line with that kind of stuff, but I will use it as a supplement. So like, you know, I have, something that the facility uses that, I have taken a liking to is the Turpify. Turpify is an approved for organic use product. Now I don't use it in my 30-gallon bed because it's like, it kind of, it might mess up the kind of feng shui that's going on in there, the whole ecology of what I've already built. So from the worms to the microbes to the the different like tropic levels of the food web that I have there, it might mess all of that up. But in my 2 gallon pots, where we're getting into week 4 or 5, and my plants are starting to get bigger and need more nutritionally, I think that it's a good supplement, right? Like I think that natural fertilizers can be implemented in there. It's just it's about how you go about it and also about sourcing it. So that's my delineation between what is organic and what isn't. So if it's on that list, Omri listed, if it's OCal certified, like it's cool. I would have to do more research on it, but I typically steer away from that to a very minimalist approach where it's like just ferments and a top dress of again barley straw malts. I might take up Builder Soils pre-mixed, build a flour. So again, it has its own vermicompost. It has its own source of again NPK that it builds from naturally derived things. But that's how I make my distinctions.
I have two more questions. So what would your response be to someone that says that you can't grow organically indoors?
Um, I mean, I would partially agree because I mean, like you're using artificial lighting, but and this is controversial, obviously, because mass medical can be controversial with it. But I feel like he's right. I mean, as far as like LED being this unnatural light, far different from HPS,
Mm.
far different from metal halide. What I have noticed is that, inside of LED growing, the plants don't have as wide of a range that it can fall as far as like temperature and humidity, right? They don't have as far of a range as they would if they were outdoors, where again you might have a daytime temp of 95 degrees out here in California, and then later on that evening it's 55 degrees. Like in LED you can't have that type of huge swing, but under metal halide I've been able to have, again, I've been able to run temps high still in flower, 83, 85, and have these swings and my plants not take a dive or decline in health. So again, like as far as like the organic question inside, yeah, there is a little bit of truth to that. I mean, but I tell people when you don't have the option to grow sun grown, like ideally you would if you could, but I mean, like when you don't have that option and you want to be clean indoors, I think that those naturally derived products and the firepower that you do get from these organic practices inside, I think that there's is still viability. And I've talked to a lot of organic farmers up in Humboldt. They're like, look, if you're doing living soil inside and you're maintaining your soil and you're like, you know, trying to be regenerative, that's that's what it is. So I classify it as regenerative, and yeah, I say that I'm as regenerative as possible. I don't throw away my soil. I try to reuse even the small pots. I'll try to top dress them really heavy and see if I can get another use out of them. And it's just, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I mean, like, it's all in efforts of me trying to reduce how much waste I actually have. So my soil has been used in those 30 gallons since I started growing indoors.
That leads me to a question that I have to ask now. Do you think that
Mm-hmm.
LEDs are only popular at the moment due to the factor of them just making stuff look very pretty and everything looks artsy and almost like it looks super appealing. All the stuff, the trichomes somehow some way look like they grow so much more like obvious, like so much more visible when it's grown under LED. I could be completely wrong. I could be just looking at like looking at it from a different light. But what is your opinion?
No, I mean, I think that again, that has to do with expression, and because metal halide to HBS to LED have these different spectrums, vastly different spectrums. You're gonna have some things that again are pluses, and I'm not saying that I don't like my LEDs because those Cobb LEDs produce some really crazy looking, good looking stuff.
Mm.
Um, like I think that it is a lot of marketing behind LEDs though. I mean, like they've been the next big thing for a long time, and now everybody has an LED brand. I mean, like that's kind of what we do. It's like a popular thing, and so people, are really into it so much that we aren't thinking about overall plant health. I have not had a purple stalk inside of my 4x4 since having the metal halide, since bringing it in. I haven't. I mean, like whether it's underwater, overwater, which I don't really have those problems as much anymore. But again, like I said, you get behind with LEDs, and it's hard to play catch up, or you have a very narrow band for which you can grow those plants. You have to run them at a specific parameter in LEDs versus my metal halide lamp. As long as I can control ambient temperature and I can control, the actual temps inside of the tent, I can kind of grow it at, whatever temp I want, and my plants will adapt. And I mean, not to, I mean, having the 30 gallons of soil underneath them help, because there's a big buffer of, what they have to take in versus what you have in small pots and in hydro. But still, it is proven to me right about now, though, that Mass Medical has been, at least correct with my own testing of plant health. Now, I'm gonna talk to you later about the yield. I'll talk to you later about how I actually feel about the resin quality because, visibly there are two different plants. Even though I'm seeing my dog walker belts and slam dunk skunk for the fourth time underneath metal halide, it has been slightly different from my LED runs. Definitely more resin, like up front on the LED, and that might just be from my lack of experience with metal halide right now. But I do think LEDs produce very visible resin and different types of resin. But I also think that that's genetics. So again, with the varieties that we're seeing having their basis so heavily in cookies, it goes back to that conversation too. Like, if you think about what cookies represents, right? It's the turn, to, I think, visibly appealing flour, right? Not saying OG Kush and all of these things weren't, because those are also very stunning and pretty to look at. But you know, cookies marks the age of, I mean, Instagram and where we are now, as far as like, what we like to see in our weed, which is a little bit of purple and a lot of like intact trichome heads, and a lot of them like a densely covered, you know trichome density, right? So it's like cookies is known for that. Very frosty. Purple. It perps out. And then it also smells, appealing as well. It smells like a dessert, or it smells like a candy or a pastry or whatever. And so all of that, though, that genetic expression has to do with, like, that's where you really get the trichome density from. Yeah, LED probably drives it, and that pairing right about now is kind of undefeated. You grow a cookie or a cookie derivative underneath LED, and you get it right. You can sell it as small batch. Even if you grew it in a 100 light room. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like,
I definitely know what you mean. I think that it's that leads me to the perfect last question. Do you think that we are now in the art era where it is more just the image?
mm, I think we've been in the art. I mean, like, and more so just beyond art. It's like we're in content creation era,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's like, and that varies from art. It's an art form in itself, but I mean, like, we're in content creation where everything is done for aesthetic, right? So it's like it looks cool to smoke. It looks cool to have lemon cherry gelatos stamped by BackPackBoyz. It looks cool to have, again, the clothes, the overall, look and lifestyle that's associated with it. So do I think art's taking over? Now, art was when, like I said, Instagram came on the scene and people first started posting their weed, and again, rappers, started being cool with saying, yeah, I smoke weed and this is what it looks like. You know what I'm saying? Like, for me to do it, like, that was, when it was art. But now that art has taken on a whole different personality, to where everybody's a content creator. I mean, myself included. I mean, it's like you want the stuff to look good, you know, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that we are in a very well, it's I think it's very much due to phones being so popular and everyone having just a lot of time where they spend on their phones, which is what it is. At the end of the day, no one can really stop that. It seems like it's very much setting in and becoming just the popular thing to have some type of status on social media and all that, which I fully understand. I'm putting this on a YouTube channel, so it's definitely not necessarily something that it's like I'm unaware of, but I definitely think that this is something that is very interesting to speak about and just overall like kind of think about. I think that this is a very interesting era that we're either already in or very much um, starting into, and it's very interesting to see these different brands. Obviously, I just did an interview with Be Easy, and he is someone who is incredible with all of these crazy fucking bags that honestly don't really make sense to do. It's just to sell you on an image, which respect to him for investing into that shit, but it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
definitely
no, respect. I mean, marketing is a game in and of itself, and marketing is big in cannabis. And again, it pairs well with what I was just saying about lifestyle and aesthetic. So again, like shout out to Be Easy because he's getting a lot of people out there that might not otherwise be out there. And I mean, when the marketing and the flower quality match up, which sometimes because I have had some things from Be Easy. It's like again when it matches up, it's golden. I mean, like I love it. It makes sense to me. But whenever I open up one of those like very neatly and nicely designed bags, and it's the same lemon cherry gelato from like 2 months ago that I had in another very nice bag that I enjoyed, but now it's like half as good. That's what pisses me off. See what I'm saying? That takes me back to a very old school, like, you kind of get what you get what
yeah
you get type
yeah
thing. And I mean, like, we're in an era where we don't gotta be like that. Like, I can find something else, that looks just as good, or or better, or just is better. So it's like, I take everything like in stride, and I think we all should, man. Like, we gotta learn to work with each other and and get along where we can, but also call each other on on the bullshit. I mean,
mm-hmm. 100%. I feel like that both just as much as people want praise, they need to accept the not the hate. I don't think it's hate when you actually look at it in the bigger picture. Like if you are literally putting the same thing in different bags, then people who I mean, it's I guess it all depends on who you're targeting, and that's why I thought it was like a great question to ask him is who are you targeting when you drop these things? You know what I mean? Like
what was his response, if you don't mind me asking?
He actually gave me like a description of a person, which was interesting. Like I was more or less like looking for like an answer on like their awareness and like their style of person, if you know what I'm trying to say. Like there's I feel like
Yeah,
it could be like a large type of person. It doesn't matter what skin color, whatever. It could fit into this box of not really someone who is more carefree, if you know what I'm trying to say. Someone who's into the glitz and glamour but isn't into doing any research. You know what I mean? But hey,
yeah,
I think it is definitely something that is impressive to see. So respect to him for even being able to make it to this level. I think now that he's made it to this level, he's going to have the opportunity of evolving with the changes that come with the game. He's obviously shown he's ready to do that with the evolution of the bags turning into cereal boxes. So I think that realistically, once the game gets to where I fully expect it to get to, where the old school chems and all these fucking powerful things, even grown under the sun, are gonna be like the top echelon, the thing that's actually like worth money. I think that he will be able to evolve with that and actually fall into a position of power in that field as well. So all respect to him. I'm not hating on what he's doing. I just think that anyone with self awareness can see what it is. So it is what it is, you know?
yeah, man, for
With
sure.
with that said though, is there anything you want to shout out before we end this?
Um, nah, just again, like, pubbing my own stuff. I got a drop coming up soon, and again, a really big pheno hunt run that I'm doing right now. All of that stuff might or might not drop. We'll see. But no, shout out to, like I said, Finest Farms, Jaws Organics, and everybody that's just out there, putting in work and putting in their passion. Again, OG Everyone Smokes, all my guys with FCP, Peter, with Budgasm and the Future Cannabis Project. Again, shout out to him for getting us together for the Catfish tester group. We're doing that on FCP Channel 2. So again, that's something that you can follow up on and see on YouTube. But yeah, those are my shout outs, and I'm just hoping everybody lets this backpack boy stuff die down. And again, like I said, take it with a grain of salt. Like, hold your brands accountable, but understand that there's low hanging fruit, and backpack boy seems to be the target of a lot of scrutiny. When it comes to what shouldn't be going down. Even though they're still one of the most popular, brands out there doing it. So
Yeah, I agree. I think in the bigger picture, they're definitely in a position to be judged. They're the ones who have put themselves out there in a very,
yeah.
you know what I mean? It's very similar to Burner. I think that Burner is someone
Mm-hmm.
who's very he's good with rolling with the punches to an extent. If you know what I'm saying, he's someone who is definitely someone who shows he's ready to evolve with the changes of the game, whether or not it's necessarily in pace with everything and he's actually having everything up to everyone's standards is another question or another thing to talk about. But we're in a very good time of cannabis, and I think everyone should be very appreciative of what we even have access to. No matter if you're in whatever fucking state, you got access to some interesting stuff right now that are the people that came before us did not have access to. So we are definitely blessed, and there's going to be a lot of bright things in everyone's future as long as they stay consistent and use this time right now to really prep for the future. This is a very, very important time. I think that right now is a very important time to get a jump on all the legal brands when it comes to actually fine tuning a certain strain or doing something along those lines. If you really want to build a brand, I think the smartest thing is building it off a strain. We've seen this with Runts, we've seen this with a lot of different brands. There's really a lot of success if you can fine tune it and make it come out to its best level. If you can do that, people are going to be really excited about you and they're going to jump on your bandwagon. So why not? Why not try it? You know what I mean?
Hey.
But I definitely appreciate and respect you for doing this. I would love to follow up and do other stuff in the future as you grow and as I grow. Obviously, this is going to be posted on a channel that's still in a very early ages of growth. I have my other channel,
Mhm.
Clearly Reviews, but this one I'm going to be focusing on now. I very much appreciate everyone that's been helping the growth of this. So much respect and love for you giving your time.
No, thank you for having me and giving me your time, man. Again, I appreciate your platform.
Well, thank you. I hope you definitely have success with that dog walker's belt. I'm definitely gonna keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, man, definitely, hit me up. I'll let you know when things are everybody will know when
Yeah,
it finishes. But yeah. It's just, hit me up and we'll try to get you some.
I appreciate it. Definitely. I think everyone that sees a video like this is going to want to see where to hit you up. So I'm gonna also add that in right now. So much
Hmm.
respect and definitely gonna follow up in the future. But stay blessed in the meantime.
Same to you, man. Have a good one.